Big day of racing coming up this weekend at Santa Anita. And I say this weekend because it was initially supposed to be on Saturday, Big Cap Day, San Felipe, and 4 stakes races on the card. But because of rain forecasted, they decided just to be proactive, push the Saturday races to Sunday. Doesn't look like there's supposed to be any rain in the forecast for Sunday. And we have an opportunity now to talk about those races with Angela Hermann. Angela, we were kind of joking before we started. It's like we've flip-flopped. We've had a bunch of rain out here. You guys have had a bunch of highs over there with your weather. It's like Freaky Friday as we record here on a Friday right now. How are things going on your end?
It's going great. It might hit 70 on Sunday.
Wow.
That is not that typical for Minnesota. Not typical at all, especially for the beginning of March, but we'll take it. And it's helped to move some things along as far as construction back here. And I think we had talked about that before. Just some things are ahead of schedule, whereas some other things that needed to involve snow have been altered by the weather up here this year. But it's definitely been the case across the country. And that's why Big Cap is on Sunday now.
Well, Angela, last time you joined me a few weeks ago, you set the bar pretty high where you gave out like a 20-1 shot as a horse that you really liked that ran well and helped some people out in those pick 4 sequences at Oaklawn Park. So we got you back to help us out. We're going to talk about the late pick 5 at Santa Anita. There are 4 graded stakes races in the late pick 5 sequence. And then another pretty fun race that's down the hill. That might be one of the better betting races of the whole sequence. Actually, it's a non-graded stakes. And we'll look into the DRF past performances. We encourage all of you, whenever you're handicapping the races, Daily Racing Form is the place to go. Past performances, clocker reports, DRF picks for every racing day at Santa Anita. There's also a big contest, the Ultimate Betting Challenge coming up on Saturday that you can play at Santa Anita, at Gulfstream, or on ExpressBet. Even though they canceled the races at Santa Anita, you can still play there, and it's all full card of Gulfstream. It's a huge contest. I think the winner will get around 75 grand. It's a big buy-in contest too. So if you're someone who likes to play in those big money tournaments, check out the Ultimate Betting Challenge on Saturday. Angela, probably not a whole lot to dissect when we really have the 6th race, the San Felipe, is the first one in the pick 5 because Nisos is the 1-5 morning line favorite in there. He's 3 for 3. He's undefeated. He's actually improved on speed figures in all 3 of his races so far. And what makes the race really difficult too is, the strong second choice is another Baffert runner who just lost to another Baffert runner, Maymoon, Imagination on the outside. It's a couple things. Not only is he imposing and impressive, but it's also the fact that the rest of the field just doesn't seem like horses that are at his level right now. There might only be a couple other 3-year-olds right now that are currently on his level, and none of them are in this field.
Well, they all got walloped by him a month ago. So How much could one possibly have improved in a month to turn the tables on that one, even to just get on level terms, much less pass him? You kind of summed up any thoughts that I would have about the race. It goes through him, and I don't think it will. So if the pick 5 is of interest to you, you will definitely get a price on anybody else, but it would take a monster effort and a monster step forward that just doesn't point itself out on paper necessarily, I think, to beat.
I know. If you're trying to get there with a horse like the 5 Imagination, the problem I have with him is 3 of his 4 races, he's finished second. And now you start to wonder if that's become kind of a thing with him, right? Is he a horse who kind of lacks the killer instinct, tons of talent? He loomed up. He looked like he was about to blow right by Maymoon. And then that horse dug in. I'm not sure if it's a combination of the one that won that day being very tough, or maybe Imagination waiting on horses a little bit, which he's shown as something that he's done multiple times. The only horse that's on my radar moving forward, not even as a play in this race, is McVeigh. He's kind of interesting. I'd love to see him show up in a race like the Pat Day Mile, a one-turn race. He runs in spots. If you watch his race, he kind of had a weird start. He was out wide. He moved all the way up into it. And that was just his first start going long. And I know that the connections think highly of him, but it's just so much to ask for him to improve that much and try to turn the tables on a seasoned horse like Nisos. Wish we had more creative stuff to tell you right off the bat, but chalk eating weasel right away for me because I have a hard time getting around him.
I did too. And with your point on McVeigh, I mean, for that kind of price tag, you have to at least take some kind of shot somewhere with what you think the horse is going to be good at. And he'll probably, improve a lot over the next year. But at this point, they are all pretty far behind ISOs. So what do you do? Just tip the cap and move along.
Exactly. And we do have some opportunities, I think, for prices as we move along to the grade 1 Kill Row Mile, which is race number 7 on the sequence, race number 7 on the card. This is also one of the races that's going to be in the Coast to Coast Pick 5 sequence on Sunday from Santa Anita and Gulfstream Park. And from a discussion standpoint, it's really interesting when you have top contenders in a race that have completely different running styles. And we kind of get that here, right? With Easter, who is really, really accomplished and in great form right now and has won back-to-back graded stakes races out here in Southern California, has won 3 in a row. And I think no doubt the horse to hold off, the horse to beat. Then on the flip side, you have a horse like Goliad, who is just a total runoff, and he can wire any field when he is feeling like it and if he doesn't get the right type of pressure. But he might get a little pressure to the outside from a horse like First Piece. I thought it's an intriguing race because it could be an honest pace. I could see him getting loose. If he gets loose, then it doesn't set up well for Easter. There are a lot of variables. And if this happens, it could make this happen. And that's how I like handicapping races, where it doesn't just look like the best horse can dictate everything and necessarily, have their own way. Goliad might deal with pressure. If he does, the race shapes up totally different. I'm curious on picking your brain on this one. Where do you start?
You have to start with him. I mean, it's a Santa Anita turf course, and it's just naturally more friendly to a horse like him than a horse like Easter, in theory. But with the outside horse, First Piece, Mike Smith is going to know that he can't let Goliad get the same sorts of trips that he's got. I don't know if he can necessarily keep the pressure on him the entire time, or if he even wants to, but there might not be, 9 or 12 lengths between the leader and the rest of the group. Mm-hmm. It might enable him
just enough, yes, right? Soften him up just enough.
Just a tick more than he wants to. So that does open things up. I'm still very partial to speed on this turf course. I've been on the wrong side of him sometimes, but really both of these outside two do interest me because I don't know how much they're going to expend themselves on the lead with a lot of horses to their inside. And that's important. That might have to sit and wait too long on that turf course. You're not going to pass the leaders. So I stick towards that speed on the outside. And generally the D'Amato horses, I'm going to wait just a little bit further down the road.
I think you're playing it right, especially if you're approaching it how we did in the pick 5, or if you thought you're going to single Nisos right off the bat, you're going to have to take some swings against some of the other short price horses in the sequence now moving forward. I think because of the different variables, I have to use the 2 outside horses. I did just like what you said, because there are so many different versions of this race where one of them sneaks away, like Goliad goes, First Piece sits, and that lets Goliad win. Or vice versa, maybe First Piece kind of falls into it, just sitting second, and he could get the jump. That thinking that way extended one more horse to me wanting to use, and that was actually Prince Obama coming off the long layoff, because I actually think he might be able to sit 4th in here if the 2 outside horses are pressing each other, and he could be the horse that gets a jump on Easter and Du Jour, the late closers who will probably come running. So while I don't know if he's going to be quite at his best or sharp enough, he's certainly capable with his best. And if he can trip out in this race, I'm going to take a little shot against some of the shorter prices in here. I think he'll be the better price of the D'Amatos. So I'll probably end up going 1, 8, and 9. As you were mentioning, I was trying to get to Irideo. This was a race I want to look for a price a little bit. I'm not quite sure if I can get there with him, because he has had he is such a deep closer that, I'm looking at him that Easter is probably a better, truer closer than him. If I'm trying to beat Easter, it has to be in trying to get the jump on Easter, I think.
I would agree. Yeah.
So,
and Dandy Man Shines is cut from similar cloth, but will be a much better price than Easter. So if I'm looking for a horse to pick up the pieces, he can sit a little bit closer, I would think, but I would imagine similar trips for them. And if you like one, the other one is going to provide just as much value, if not more. Well, a lot more, sorry. But I can't see it playing out much differently than at least the outside 2, leading them along to the first 6. And a lot will depend on how much they expend, I guess, going into the turn, because I want I want a big lead for either one of them coming for home. That's what I envisioned in my head, and those are the two that I'm going to play with that school of thought.
And me too. And what's weird about these two in particular is both Kimura, Mike Smith, fantastic riders, but neither one of them you would think of as like overly aggressive either. Yeah. But they have been with these particular horses. Like they will do it with the right horse, but overall, that's just not necessarily something that they do. They're more patient riders. So it'll be really intriguing if it's these two guys out there who aren't really aggressive and they're trying to kind of cat and mouse each other. It could be like the race within the race here and could really set things up or make things really difficult for the horses who want to come from behind.
And I think that people are counting on those two to keep an honest pace, whereas they might just look at each other and say, no, that's good, we'll slow it down. I was hoping that one of the two would do that, or maybe both, and they could hang on and make even the verticals a little bit interesting, because I don't think that either one of them is going to be too bad in the value department.
Really fun renewal of the Kilroe Mile as we move to the big cap. And this is one of these types of races where there's not any real grade 1 horses in this field. It's not like the big caps of old, but there's no horse in this field that's over 10-1 on the morning line. And it's kind of a grab bag. It doesn't feel like anyone is so dominant or scary that it would really shock you if any of the others won this race. You have a horse like Newgrange, who's sharp right now. It's kind of a grinder who had a perfect scenario 2 races back. And then last time out, he got put on the front end. I was expecting Newgate to be a little more forwardly placed, and Newgrange just was able to kind of cruise. A lot of question marks in this race too, with I think how the pace could shape up. I could see horses like Reincarnate, Mixto, Salesman, Newgate, and Newgrange all wanting to go try to establish position and not be too far off of it. And if that's the case, all these horses aren't proven at 1.25 miles. They could be gasping for air late in this race. Really intriguing and just going horse by horse and find, do you think they can fit the race shape? Do they have versatility? Do they get the 1.25 miles? I think I wanted to start with Newgate, Angela, because I just expected better from him last time out. I think overall he might have the highest upside of most of the horses in this field. And I'm looking at his overall form. I think third start off the bench, off the long layoff, he could be set for one more step forward. And with Dettori aboard versus Joel, I just think you're going to get a more aggressive ride here than you got last time out. So he's a horse who definitely will be in the mix for me in pick 4s and pick 5s. Who are some of the horses on your radar in here?
I was actually, I don't want to say bullish, but what a way for Highland Falls to get introduced to Great Stakes Company. I mean, you go into a grade 1 where you don't actually have to beat any grade 1 winners. A couple of them haven't won this year.
You're 3-1.
I know.
No, I mean it in like you're only 3-1. It's a perfect spot. It's a perfect placement for this horse.
Yeah. Wading into the pool as far as going into grade 1 competition.
Absolutely.
You'd say. And with what you mentioned about the pace, I don't think he's going to be outside of his comfort zone either. No. I mean, this is kind of glass slipper fit, at least for what you would pick out for him. Now, whether he can deliver, it's another question. But as far as what you want for your horse to try grade 1 company, I think this is definitely where you'd land. And I was looking at Subsanador, and I watched that race back again. And if you watch the battle for third, you know, he wasn't really unduly pushed along. It was his first start in a while. And even though John Sadler hasn't brought too many from other countries lately, I mean, pandemic involved with that. Prior to that, I had always given a lot of his horses that came from Europe, South America, a start or two. And with that one behind him, with Skipping the San Pasquale, maybe we see a better version of this horse. And maybe he can't get the distance. He was a miler in South America for the most part. But I think that as far as looking for anything out of the ordinary, he might be the place that I would go and use some exactas maybe with these two. But the rest of them look fairly the same and have run fairly the same in their renewals against each other. So then you end up having to spread and not getting a lot of good prices and going along with that spread. If you do think that Newgrange, Newgate, and the regulars in these stakes have a big shot.
You and I had this race almost spot on handicapped because I just did a coast to coast pick 5 preview video for DRF. I used 2, 5, and 6 in this race.
I haven't seen it yet.
As my 3. Nope, it hasn't even been posted yet. So we were same page. When you watch the race with Subsanador, you could just from the start to where he was it wasn't like he had the most brutal trip in the world, but he was like in between horses. It just nothing seemed great about it. It was a bunch of little things, and you watch him and the workouts, the way that race was where he was so kind of overbet in that spot too, coming off a long layoff and so undervalued. It's almost like it's the reaction has gone the opposite. I think people were too hard on him for that race and like, oh, he's not got any ability. You're totally correct on maybe he's not a 1.25 mile horse, but against this group, he might be able to get it. There's not really a bunch of proven 1.25 mile horses here. The only one that has ever even really gotten this trip is Salesman. And Salesman is a distance horse who was able to cruise on a really slow pace when he got out front. And it just doesn't seem like he's going to get that same sort of trip in here. So I have to use the 2 for all the reasons that you said, because I'm probably the most sure that he will be passing horses late and hit the board. I'm pretty confident that he's going to run well in here and pass like at least half the field. It's just, does he get enough to win this race? I'll throw in Subsanador as the wild card, and I'll hope Newgate gets a little more aggressive. So I'll use those few, and we see this race pretty similar with Highland Falls. Probably the horse they'll all have to hold off if he's able to even just replicate what he's been doing recently. He doesn't even really have to improve off that form.
Just keep going on that trajectory. And I mean, it is worth noting, just 4 starts to him. There's not all the bumps and bruises with Highland Falls necessarily that there are with some of these more seasoned horses. And there's something to be said about that too. I mean, he might just be in the right spot at the very right time.
It's no shock that someone like Brad Cox wins a ton of races because he knows where to place these horses too. Right? He knows the levels of all these horses and where they fit. And he's able to use a horse like this, who probably even is one of his maybe B- tier horses, send him over here right now and send him over here. And this horse could step up and become a real player in graded stakes races. So
graded stakes winner, graded stakes placed. Either way, it does some favors to his resume, and Highland Falls, I think, will definitely get at least one of those designations by Sunday.
2 more races to discuss in the Sunday Pick 5 on March the 3rd at Santa Anita. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Gina Bucola here with Angela Hermann, who's over at Canterbury. And you can see that great background she's got all set up right now. Angela's handicapping the races on a fun weekend coming up. Gulfstream prep races for the Derby and Oaks. Aqueduct prep races for the Derby and Oaks. And at Santa Anita, we also have prep races for the Derby. Next week will be one for the Oaks. Let's go down the hill, Angela. Race number 9 is a first level allowance race. And this one's a real kind of challenging race in the pick 4s, pick 5s, however you're approaching it. So this one is going to go as race number 9. And the horse who I want to kind of start the conversation with, and a horse who definitely will be in the mix for me, is a horse who has a beautiful pedigree. I'd probably be surprised if she's 6-1. I think she'll get bet a little bit. Is number 5, Vengaza, who debuted, won on an off track in a field of 2. It was a match race. So that's the only win that she has. We don't really have right. We don't really have a whole lot to go off of as far as her career form and wins. But following that, they threw her into the Santa Anita Oaks, and that was going long on the dirt. There's a little too much to ask. She's off from April all the way to February. So she's off for 10 months. She shows back up in February, and she's way out of it early on. And then all of a sudden, she really starts to show some nice energy down towards the inside. Huge gallop out. And that was going 6 furlongs on the turf. Now she'll go 6.5. She is bred incredibly. Her pedigree is just regal as can be. Her Dam Avenge was a very nice horse who actually won down the hill 3 times in a row, and who was a multiple grade 1 winner. And, her sire Curlin on the top side with Smart Strike, it screams turf as well. So she's bred up and down for the grass. I think she fits the hill. there's just a lot of things I like about her in this spot if she can get out of the gate better than she did last time out.
I was going to hone in on her as probably one of the three. And I should say a lot will change with scratches if Aventap gets in as well. So do make note of that. Check those early, because if 13 does draw in, that changes things
major player
significantly from a pace standpoint. Now, that said, Venganza, I do think the ability is there. She can't do the same thing she did last time.
No.
Because she's got so much more to work through and a hill to work with. It can sometimes become a traffic jam. You know that. I mean, if you aren't the horse that gets the exact spot or the one that sets themselves up 5 wide instead of 14 wide, there's just a lot of little intricacies to it. And a horse with so little experience and a horse that showed so little speed concerns me. I was just looking for horses who had a touch more in that department, but I don't sell short, like you said, the blue blood that she carries and the ability that she's shown.
I'm with you on using a couple other speeds too, right? We need a couple other horses on the ticket that are going to be more forwardly placed. Who are some of those horses for you?
Yeah, that's where I was going. I mentioned the 13 because if she is out, it helps the chances significantly of both Summer Lake and Just Nails, because these are 2 older mares who got late starts, haven't had a whole bunch of races to them, even though they are both 5, that have shown enough talent, and they've done it on this turf course. And I like their positioning to the outside. I mean, naturally, you're just drawn to the outside in downhill races. And I think that there's just more room to move forward. There's a lot of horses towards the inside that have shown their very best. You're not sure if you necessarily had that yet with either Just Nails or Summer Lake. I don't think Summer Lake is going to be much higher than 7-2, 3-1, something like that. And of course, going out of Cowbreds is going to be a challenge. But the hill, I feel, equalizes that for horses who like it. So I'm going to try and see if both her and Just Nails, who picks up Hector Barrios, Doug O'Neill takes the blinkers off, or maybe she won't be as close, but will get a better shot to strut her stuff, stay closer, and throw some value into the exotics, and somehow key some tries, some supers around these, and of course use them in the horizontal sequences, because I think everybody is going to keep each other at least north of having a humongous favorite. I think that this is one of the better vertical plays of the whole day, but of course, using at least a few in horizontal purposes is key. And there's some good prices that you're going to pick up with horses like Just Nails and putting those in.
You and I might have to play a ticket together on Sunday, because my 3 in here were 5, 9, 11. Those were and
we did not talk before this.
Not at all. I completely agree with you on both the 9 and 11. What's nice, Just Nails might be the fastest horse in here with that outside draw. I could see her right on the lead. And Hector Barrios has actually been someone who I have been surprised by seeing how many times he's done that with horses, being really aggressive and putting them right on the lead. Last year, he was a lot more patient. He's gotten real aggressive in a few spots. I'd love to see him do that here. Second start off the bench. She had, it's kind of some sneaky trouble. She was in between horses, but I just think she's going to get a different trip, more aggressive. And then Summer Lake, while she can also show speed, she can sit off too, which is really nice from way out there. So if Just Nails goes and Summer Lake wants to just sit off second or third, I think she will be fine. And both of them would be really content with their positioning. So I'm in agreement. If the 13 is not in, you probably want both the 9 and 11 on your pick 4s or 5s, just in case one of the 2 of them sneaks away. When there's only 2 real speeds like that, it can be difficult. And I think those are the 2 main speeds. Maybe the 10 I could see, but I think the 9's faster.
I wonder with the blinkers off what they really want to do with her, but
with the intent.
We'll find out. And we also, again, keep an eye on the scratch on the outside. But yes, the horse between the 2, get the money, definitely could keep things interesting up front if she takes to that course and, the turf. But at least that Summer Lake and Just Nails have run over this turf course, run all right, and shown some speed on it in the past. I mean, Summer Lake really likes it. So I lean a little bit towards her just with where she's positioned in the gate. But especially if 13 scratches, I will like her a lot more.
Let's finish things up, Angela, in race number 10. It's the grade 2 Buena Vista. We head back to the turf course. We'll go a mile on the turf here. And this one is a pretty well-matched field here. You have horses like Bella Bell, who has some real nice backclass, and she's got tactical speed. She came off a long layoff. She was very sharp in winning. Ruby Nell's been in good form as of late. She's quick. She can sit a little bit. That is what could make this race open up or could change the complexion of this race? Does a horse like Ruby Nell have to get aggressive here with Maldonado because she's drawn right outside a faster filly? I mean, Kiss by Fire is just faster. She's coming out of sprint races. She's been quicker. If she wants to lead and she really wants to go, I think it's hers. And it probably puts a couple of these others in more of a tracking, stalking spot. So how are you seeing this thing play out? And who are some of the horses you definitely want to close with?
I think that the draw of Kiss by Fire that you mentioned is very important because she is to the outside of Bella Bell, inside of Ruby Nell, really gives the advantage to Ruby Nell as far as that goes. But the three of them being close together like that, I think keeps things honest enough and might enable some of these horses to their outside to move in enough where I'm going to do something I do not like to do. Take an 11 horse going a mile on Santa Anita's turf course. I almost never do it, but I'm going to give Moofy another shot. I got to give her a little love. I saw her early on in her career. I mean, she's gone all the way from Gulfstream. She's gone to Kentucky. She's gone to Indiana. Moofy dances a lot of dances, but I think that giving her another shot off a very good second behind Bella Bell, she got me that day. I mean, Frankie Dettori getting on her, not saying that that's any sort of upgrade, lateral move, whatever it is. It's just that he's ridden this course very well. And if anybody is going to be able to help her out in getting over from the outside and finding a good trip in what is a very difficult starting spot, it's him. So I'm going to try to take her to upset these three who I think keep each other honest. And she won't be too far behind, but I think that just by virtue of where she is, she'll sit mid-pack and hopefully have a clear journey on the outside, which is also important with a group like this because I don't see them all that separate on paper. It could get very, very messy lately, and maybe staying towards the outside is going to be a good thing to keep her clear of traffic.
Yeah, I'm 9-11 for sure. And then I'm trying to figure out 4, 6 are the horses who I have to figure out. Am I going to use both? One of the two? Am I pressing with 9-11? But 9-11 are definitely on the ticket for me for a lot of the reasons you said about Mafi. She sat a little closer than I even was expecting last time out. So I like that she's getting a little more mature, and with someone like the Toria board and drawn out wide, she probably will get a little bit more aggressive. So she's definitely in the mix for me. The 9 is the horse who I wanted to mention a little bit, Lakota Spirit, because if you look at her form, I love horses like this where it just all makes sense. She's improved since she's come into the D'Amato barn. Just looking on speed figures right there, all 5 of her races that she's run are better than the races that she ran before. And let's just look at these 5 races. Twice she lost to a horse named Linda's Gift. Linda's Gift right now is a really nice turf marathoner out here. She's won 3 in a row, and she's won multiple graded stakes races. So while she's lost to a horse not in graded stakes races, she's lost to a graded stakes winner. It's kind of sneaky when that happens because people will look at the races and don't think they're quite as classy, but she's actually lost to a horse in allowance races a couple times. That's a graded stakes winner. She lost to a horse named Angel Nadeshiko who went wire to wire. And in the race where she lost to Speed Lane basically went wire to wire, sat just off the lead and moved right to the front. The point is, in her most recent losses, in all of them, the horses that won those races are basically going wire to wire. And if we're projecting that this race might set up differently, she may actually have a shot in here to run better than she has in a lot of those recent races. So I'm going to throw her in a pick 4 or a pick 5 because if we're thinking it could set up for a horse like Mafi to get a nice trip, I think Lakota Spirit could also be one of them that could benefit a little bit more from just an honest pace scenario and a bigger field. She'll always have trouble, Angela, in fields of 5 and 6 when she's facing a horse like Linda's Gift or horses who just have more tactical speed than her.
No, that's fair. Sorry for Mafi, however you
want
to say her name, the 11.
I said it 4 different times, I think. I think I said it.
The 11.
Yeah, that's safer. Yeah. The Thomas trainee, we could go with that also.
Yeah, the Thomas trainee on the outside, ridden by Franco Dettori. All right. Lakota Spirit, though, my only issue with Lakota Spirit is not the races that she's put on paper, and I agree with you on the Linda's Gift thing especially. It's just the price. I mean, 6-1, fine, but then look at her last 5 races. I mean, she hasn't gone off north of 3-1, but those were also a different mixed bag of races too. I understand there were some scratches and changes and she was at different levels and everything. She just usually gets bet. So I was trying to look a different direction and maybe a barn and a post that wouldn't get bet, but definitely not a lot of holes to poke in Lakota Spirit because she always runs a race.
I'm glad because of the turf races. I'm really glad they're pushing it this Sunday because the turf races are good. They're challenging, they're intriguing, and they're deep. This is a race where Ruby Nell and Bella Bell will both definitely take some money in here. Closing Remarks will also take some money because she's been, popular and she's been good in the last couple of years, but I don't think any one of them should be an overwhelming favorite or should be that short in here, much shorter than their morning lines, maybe 3-1-ish. So if that's the case and we have that for your baseline and horses above that, it's ripe for a nice way to close out a Sunday 4 graded stakes card that has been pushed from Saturday. Angela, before we let you go, what is going on over at Canterbury? What kind of stuff do you have coming up? You guys are doing the road to the Derby. I've seen you post videos and stuff like that. Give us some plugs for anything that's happening on your end.
Yeah, we got the Road to Kentucky. It goes on all spring every Saturday, and it's a different track every week. This week it's going to be Gulfstream Park, 10:15 a.m. Well, at least for those of us here, you get to start at 8:15, but we have a contest that's free to play. You got to have a minimum amount of play. There's different rules to it. Just take a look online at canterburypark.com. The Road to Kentucky is 14 races worth with a couple of bonus races as well with those Derby preps that you mentioned before. And there's also a side pot to it. Bet on yourself. If you come and check that out at Canterbury, you can get that. You can only play it live right here on site, but it's $10. You take all the picks that you just made and try to win a little bit more cash along with it. So that's what's cooking on Saturday. And live racing is just around the corner. We're getting stuff going every single day. Like I mentioned, stuff's going up on the backside. If you haven't been here in a couple of years, it'll look a lot different. But live racing is set to return in May already, and it's March. I can't believe I'm saying that, but here we are.
Okay, well, we'll get you back in a few weeks to help us out with another one of the final Derby preps. Can you believe that? The final, we're going to have that final round coming up. It's going to start, I think, next week with the Tampa Bay Derby, and then everything just is one more at each track. So thank you so much for your help today. Thank you for your help again a few weeks ago. Good luck to you and everyone out there at Canterbury this week with all of your plays and picking the winners on the road to the Derby. And make sure to give Angela a follow on Twitter. What's the Twitter, Angela?
I'm at Angela Hermann 15. No significance to the 15. It's just a couple of numbers on the end of my name. But yeah, definitely give a follow. I'm going to get more active as we get closer to live racing, and hopefully give us some more winners. We agree on a lot, so hopefully we're both right because we're seeing it the same, I think, at Santa Anita on Sunday.
Fingers crossed. Folks, thank you so much for hanging out with us here. Don't forget, anytime you need help handicapping the races, anytime you're getting prepared, get to drf.com. Santa Anita has PPs every single day, Clocker reports, and DRF picks. Good luck on a big Sunday at Santa Anita. And thanks again to Angela for helping us out.